Hi there, welcome to Mama Magic. My name is Fiona and I'm here today to tell you the birth story of my baby who was born a couple months ago at home. This was our fourth home birth, so really special and I can't wait to tell you the story. But before I get started, I would like to ask you to please subscribe if you have not already done so, and to like this video if you enjoy it, and to share it with anyone who you think might enjoy it as well. If this is your first time watching, my name is Fiona. I have 4 children now, all born at home, and I am a breastfeeding supporter and volunteer. I am a yoga teacher, specialising in pre and postnatal yoga. We home educate as well. You'll find loads of videos all about, aspects of attachment, parenting, breastfeeding, pregnancy related, and yoga as well on my channel, so go have a look. Today's video, as I say, is a really positive home birth story. I'm just going to narrate it, but I have lots of footage and photos from the birth itself, so you'll see lots of it as well as just me talking you through it. So I really hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed the birth. It was a Tuesday night, right? It was at 3 a.m. on the night, Tuesday night into Wednesday. My waters broke. That's never happened to me before. They always broke just before the birth. So I was like, oh my God. So I was in bed, I got up, went to the bathroom and I rang my midwife and I said, my waters are broken. And she said, that's fine. How do you feel? I said, I feel good. She said, how is the baby? Is the baby moving? I said, honestly, I hadn't been thinking about that in that moment. So I said, I'll keep an eye and I'll let you know. And she's like, look, just go back to bed and we'll chat again in the morning, because the contractions hadn't started yet. I was like, that's fine. So I went back to bed and I was kind of waiting to feel any movements from my baby. Because I wasn't having any contractions, we actually put on some music, because my baby used to always move a lot with music. So my husband put on the Lumineers' It's Your Birthday song, because we had been to their concert during my pregnancy and we were just laughing, and then I felt my baby move and I was like, yay, so went to sleep. But I did have very mild kind of contractions during the rest of that night, like maybe every half an hour to 20 minutes to half an hour, really mild, just a tightening, and I was like, yay. I was delighted because it meant labor was going to happen, soon. But when I woke up then, the same kind of very mild intermittent contractions, like I got to rest in the bed in between that time. But the good thing as well, actually, I forgot to mention, is that my mom had actually stayed the night before, thinking that my husband was going to be away. She had arranged to stay. So I was like, it's all kind of working out, everyone's around me. So she was around with the kids. So she just kind of hung out with the kids while I focused on myself and on today's the day. It is the 26th of October and today's the day that our baby is going to be born. Just know it. A slight trickle last night during the night. I think it could be the hindwaters, not 100% sure, but mild contractions most of the morning, and my midwife now is on her way, so we'll assess when she's here. So I have just been monitoring, the sensations. They're not they're very mild, very manageable. Just feel it feels like a gentle opening. Just really excited to be here. I'm sitting on my ball. I'm about to start using the Winterflow and I'm drinking my labor aid. And the kids are outside playing with my mom. She stayed the night last night, which was lucky. And my husband has the pool ready to go as well. So I have a feeling I might be getting into that at some point in the next couple of hours, which would be lovely. So really excited. Yeah, just can't believe the day is here. And just looking forward to the experience and to meeting our baby, because it's going to be amazing. The morning kind of just went really slowly. The contractions didn't speed up at all. And I was like, what's going on? Because I've had experiences, all different experiences in all my births, but I hadn't had one like this, as I say. I also got in touch with my friend who had arranged was going to photograph the birth. And so just keeping in touch with people, The other thing that my husband did is when my waters broke in the middle of the night, he got up then, he's like, right, I'm going to get the pool ready, because it has happened before that he's gotten up to get the pool ready. And we haven't made it into the pool because the birth has been so fast. So he didn't want that to happen. He wanted to have the pool ready, and he's complete expert at filling it at this point, in the fourth home birth. So he had been doing that, and he had got that ready. By the morning, he didn't go back to bed that night. God love him. So that was ready, and I was like, yay, everything was in place. It just wasn't really happening. Like, the contractions were very, very far apart. And then come around lunchtime, my midwife arrived, and we sat down, we had some lunch, and I'd say the contractions almost stopped. Like, we were just chatting, I was grand, I didn't feel like I was in labour, let's say, at all. And I was getting a bit worried, because I was like, okay, how long has it been since my waters broke? And we were talking about the waters, and it was like, okay, maybe it was the hindwaters. But still, I was actually on the clock. Like, I was like, oh my God, and I started to feel this pressure, because depending on which hospital you're booked into, you have a certain amount of hours before you have to go in after your waters break. And I was like, oh my God. So we talked about it a little bit, and I was due to get some reflexology a couple of days. I had planned to get some reflexology from, just so happened to be from the woman who was going to be my second midwife. I had her booked in for like 2 days later, just a nice thing to do for myself during my pregnancy. And I was like, well, what about we try to organise that? I can't remember, was it me or was it my midwife that kind of said, look, maybe we should try and do that now. And so, because my midwife knew that the second midwife was, on standby as well, she's like, look, let's get in touch with her and we'll see. And so she agreed to come to my house and give me some reflexology, which was super. It was like really, really well thought out. It was actually quite spontaneous, really, I suppose, but it was a great idea. So I don't know whether to credit my midwife for that or not. I think it was probably her idea that she come, that day. So we got in touch with her, and she came over. And in the meantime, my friend who was going to photograph the birth was there as well. And she was great, because she was like telling us funny stories, and it was kind of relaxing. And it was, I just remember laughing my head off at one point and thinking, this is really good for me, laughter for relaxing me during, like, for labour. And then, so I went to my room. I had lunch. We had all had lunch. I went to my room, and my second midwife, Brenda, she gave me the most beautiful reflexology session. It was about an hour. I put on music. She told me exactly what to do. I put on a blindfold, because it was still maybe 3 p.m. It was like the middle of the day. And she was like, she just talked to me a little bit, but mostly just worked on my feet. And I did get a couple of contractions during that session, and I just felt so blissed out and relaxed afterwards. And when she left the room, she was like, look, stay here for a few minutes, maybe about 10 minutes, relaxed, and then get up and walk around with your knees, like walk with your knees up really high. I said, okay. And in the meantime, Angela, my main midwife, came in and said, look, me and Brenda are going to go for a coffee in the local cafe, just give you a little bit of time, and, we'll stay in touch. We're just down the road. I said, that's fine. So I stayed relaxed for about 10 minutes or so. Then I got up and I started walking, my knees up really high, as she had said. At the same time, I was like, okay, it's 4 p.m. My waters broke more than 12 hours ago. So I'm really on the clock now. And that was in my head, but at the same time, I was definitely more in my feeling kind of zone. I wasn't as logical as that. It was just I kind of knew, that it was now or never, really. Not that it was now or never, but if I wanted to have my baby at home, it had to happen soon. So I put on a nice playlist that I had made up. It was actually all the songs. It was a list of the songs that I usually play at the end of my pregnancy yoga classes that I had been teaching all during my pregnancy, and I've been teaching for the past 8 years. And they're just really songs that I really connect to. They're really relaxing, but they're powerful. And I put that on, and I had all the different bits and pieces from my mother blessing that people had given me, different symbols, beads, pictures, blessings. I had them on my dresser. I was in my bedroom, had them on my dresser, and so I just kind of leaned on the dresser. The music was playing, and I started feeling them, like touching them, looking at them. It was very sensory, and I was listening to music, and a song would come on that I really connected to, and I'd start belting it out, like singing my heart out, and I was swaying from side to side. I was standing, kind of leaning and swaying, listening to the music, singing, and I was walking around the room as well. I was dancing. I was like, and the contractions just started coming. I also started some nipple stimulation. I was like desperate. I was like, feeling my nipples because I knew that would help. And so I was just using all the tools that I kind of have known about for the past 10 years and have taught about and everything. And I was just using them all to help me. And I just welcomed each wave like it was like my best friend, and really started to enjoy the labor. Really was just like, yes, it's here, it's coming, my baby's ready, I'm ready. I also just thought of it now, what I did before the reflexology session was I actually journaled, and I wrote to my baby, and I was like, I'm ready for you, and I think that probably helped me as well. But it was just, that part of the labor was just so lovely. Just me, and I don't know where everyone else in the house went to. Like I had, like my husband, my 3 kids, my mom, and my friend who's photographing the birth. They had all just disappeared, and it was just me in my room, and I was just like singing, dancing, rubbing my nipples, touching all the different things with the mother blessing. It was a really sensory, beautiful experience, and I was like, yes, it's happening, and after a while I was like, the contractions were getting stronger and coming closer together. So I actually texted my husband. I didn't know where he was. He was somewhere in the house or garden, and I said, come now. And he came, and I said, I need you to sort of fix the TENS machine on my back because I needed something extra. I went on the loo and laboured there for probably a couple of minutes before I got a phone call from my midwife, Angela, and I was like, Angela, it's happening. She was like, oh my God, brilliant, So she's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So, so that was kind of funny. It was really good timing because, I probably should have rang her, but I was just so, every time I went to think of doing something between a contraction, another one came. So it was like at that point, it was progressing very fast. So I was on the loo, I had the TENS machine, I had my music, and I was just breathing. I was using a lot of really deep breaths. Just allowing the breath in really deeply, using my diaphragm, all the kind of the breathing techniques I normally teach, and then just like breathing out, like really kind of a straw breath, out through the mouth, a kind of a just really deep breathing. And being on the loo really helped as well. I suppose the privacy, the positioning, the gravity. I put a pillow behind me. I had laboured on the loo in my first 2 pregnancies as well, and I knew how helpful it was. And then Angela, I guess, arrived about 10 minutes later, and it was probably about 5 o'clock, maybe 5:15 at this point. And she saw me, and she was probably like, oh wow, it's so exciting, yay, I was in the throes of it. And so she got to work bringing all her stuff in. I knew I wanted to move off the loo, and so I had my birth ball, and she was like, do you have any yoga mats? The yoga mats were under the birth pool, but the ones I normally use, but I had like ones from when, like I have loads in storage, so my husband just found a few we put them out and I went into all fours and using the birth ball. And at that stage it was really intense, and that's when my friend Heather, who was photographing me, came in, and my two eldest children, Luna and Glenhogue, they're 10 and 7, a girl and a boy, and they came in, and because we had already talked about this, they wanted to be part, they wanted to be there when I was giving birth. Yeah, so they joined the party. Like I have so basically there's an ensuite and the room. It's quite a big room, and my husband was there as well. Obviously he was helping with different things, getting things for Angela that she needed, like towels and all that. And so Glenhogue and Luna were on the bed. I was on the ground on all fours. Angela was there with me. She had all her equipment and stuff. I was still using the tens, I think, at that stage, and lying on the ball, like kind of like in a supported child's pose, using the ball. And the contractions were coming fast and furiously at that point. I do remember doing a poo at this point as well, and I was I was so in the midst of the thick of the labor that it was just like, yeah, whatever. And I knew that's a really good sign as well. So I was like, yay, So Angela would monitor the baby's heartbeat through my legs. Because I was in a kind of a supported all fours, and she was using that, the counter pressure on my lower back during a contraction, which really helped. And she had lovely cool hands. I was roasting like. We were all in our room at that point, except for my mum and my youngest, 4. They were in a different room, and I think that worked out well actually, because he, mightn't have understood as much and might have been a bit distracting, but the other two definitely wanted to be there. So I was really glad that they were there and got to witness everything. Later on, my husband said that he had come in to tell them that it was happening, and he said to my daughter, "Bring your phone." She just has a phone for audiobooks. She doesn't have an actual phone. So bring your phone and get ready to take some pictures and some video. So the other thing that Angela had done was to get back in touch with Brenda, who my second midwife, to let her know to come over. So I remember Angela just saying to Luna, just keep an eye out the window there, and let me know if you see Brenda. So she did that, and I'd say Brenda arrived. I was in really like the throes of labour. I did have a moment where the contractions kind of stopped and it was just calm. And I remember that from previous births. It was just like that transition. I know some people freak out during the transition, but for me it tends to be just a breather. Like, even I don't know how long it was, maybe 2 minutes, but compared to the frequency of the contractions before that, it felt like a long time. And then the kind of the bearing down, the actual birthing started to happen. So there was like the crowning, the in and out for, I guess, a few minutes. But I had my husband then beside me. I was like, I need you here beside me. He had to move something out of the way, a mirror or something, but he was then in beside me, and I really liked having him there. He's been right there for all of the births, and I kind of moved my left leg forward, so it was almost in like a lunge, but not a complete lunge, as my baby was being born, and the head was coming out and back in, out, for each contraction. This was the crowning, the stretching. It was very intense, and I just used my breath at that point. I did also use the Winterflow. Angela suggested that, and at the time I remember thinking, I don't want to have to bother with it, but it actually really helped when it it just helped to slow down the breaths so that each time I breathed out, you just use it on the out breath. It just made it a lot longer, the out breath, and it really just relaxed my body more and probably made the birth easier and faster. So I was using the Winterflow on the out breath, and then Brenda arrived, and she's a great presence. I just remember just a lovely presence with her arrival, and so she was there, and both Brenda and Angela were just encouraging. I can't remember exactly what they said, but they were very encouraging. I think I remember Angela saying, "Oh, I can see the head now," or "You're doing great," and it's just really respectful, really lovely and supportive. Like, I felt like I had a whole community like rooting for me. So then I birthed his head in one big contraction, waited, another contraction, another. They were really, really intense, but it was just felt powerful. It wasn't like it was really difficult, but it was really powerful, and was really, I can do this.
Oh, that's it. There's a baby. There you go. Have a towel there for you. Thank you. That's it. I can see the dimples. Yay. Good woman. Can you see? Yeah. That's it. Just breathe into it. That's it. That's it. Baby's head is out now. Well done. Wow. Well done. That's it. Time. The time 47 head. That's it. Relax that jawline. That's it. Nice. Soften those shoulders, baby. Yeah. It's okay, baby's turning. Well done, Fiona. And do a big push with the neck surge, okay? And then you have your baby in your arms. That's it. That's it, baby's here. Well done. There you go. See?
I think I saw it. I think it's...
That's it, just right down there. Where did that come from?
And then he was born, and Angela caught him, and there was a cord around his neck, which 3 of my 4 children all had when they were born, the nuchal cord. Just, obviously just took it off. I didn't even know until after I had asked her, and she passed my baby through, laid him down in front of me, and I picked him up and brought him to my chest. I just kind of turned over and sat down with him on my chest, and it took a little bit, like, he was kind of like, not, they didn't need to use oxygen or anything to get him to breathe, but he was kind of hadn't really arrived fully, if you get me. So I sat there and I started to sing. And I sang a song, an Irish song. It's usually Machalin Allin. It's like my beautiful girl, but I sang Mavuchal Allin, my beautiful boy. And I just sang one verse, and
welcome.
In that time he just looked up at me. In kind of recognition, I guess, or I don't know, but I just started to cry. Like, it was very overwhelming, the emotion of it, like, it was unbelievable. And I think it was probably because like it was such an emotional birth. Like even when I was in the lovely part, like it was still really emotional because I guess because we had lost our previous baby. We had a miscarriage like early enough. It was at 13 weeks gestation, but I guess the whole pregnancy I was like really positive. Well, the first trimester I wasn't, but as in I was just really worried. It was just a very emotional meeting my baby this time because of all the emotion of, you know, a pregnancy after loss. And it was incredible. So I cried a few times, you know, in that, you know, aftermath of his birth, like in those next few minutes. And I just remember Angela came and gave me a massive hug, and obviously Glenn, my husband, was there, and he was, you know, wrapping a blanket around me and hugging me and the baby. And the one thing I remember was he was just so beautiful. Like he had the most beautiful face, maybe, like he still does, but you know, just that the first glance at him, the first holding of him in my arms, he was just so beautiful and so perfect. And with that look of recognition after I sang to him, then all was well. You know, it was like he just needed that something to ground him to earth. It was like he still hadn't fully arrived before that. It was only seconds really since his birth, but so I held him, and like I said, I was wrapped in a towel, I think, or a blanket, and Glenn, my husband, went to get Saul, my third born, and my other two kids, they just kind of gathered around, and we all just sat there on the ground in our bedroom with our new baby. And I remember one point the baby kind of just looked back like this at his next biggest brother, you know, at Saul, and he just looked at him, and it was just like, in my mind it was like, oh, this is the person who's been, you know, screaming and playing and singing and everything around me for the past 9 months, because obviously Saul was, you know, still very close to me. We sleep together, and he nursed for most of the pregnancy, you know, so that was a really lovely moment as well. And yeah, so that was just, it was beautiful, that moment of meeting him, and for all of us, like really a family birth. So as I say, at that point my husband did skin to skin with Oak, and we were like, okay, it's placenta time, just like my least favorite part of every birth. But so I sat on the loo thinking, with like a basin underneath, thinking, okay, this worked during the labour, and I breathed and I sat there and nothing happened. So I got off the loo. They kind of laid out some incontinence sheets on my bed, and at that point I was wrapped in my dressing gown, like a nice warm robe, and I sat on the bed, and they brought him to me, and he had a little nurse like he's doing now. Yeah, I'm telling your story. It's a very important story, Oak. Angela helped him latch on. I tried to get him to latch on to help, you know, with the placenta, and it took a while, but eventually the placenta came, and it was fine. Like it came easily enough in the end, but it did take a little while, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, I'd say. And so, yeah, physiological third stage, which was great. I just stayed in bed. I didn't have to move from birthing the placenta. Angela had to go, and Brenda stayed and did the baby checks and also checked the placenta. She also like explained it all to my kids and my mom. They were like, you know, asking her about it. She was showing them the different parts of the placenta, which was really cool. Then we did the baby checks, and he was everything perfect. 7 pounds exactly. And yeah, so that was lovely to do the checks with the kids as well, you know, for them to be part of that again, because they had been for Saul's birth as well. And yeah, and that was it. I was tucked up tucked up to bed with my baby. Oh yeah, and then the midwives both, Angela had left and then Brenda left. She said goodbye and we had lots of hugs. And one of the best things about home birth is you get visits for the next 2 weeks. So I knew it wasn't the end of their care, which is lovely as well. And yeah, like he was born at 5:45 or something, 5:47 or something like that. So, I'd say Angela had arrived and he was born 35 minutes later. Like, that was pretty fast. He came fast in the end, but it took a while to kickstart, But I was so glad and so relieved that he came within the time frame, that I didn't have to go into hospital just because my waters had broken, So that was great. And the kids, the older two were there for the whole thing, and my daughter took videos and my son witnessed the whole thing, like at 7 years old, and he thought it was interesting, and he loved seeing his brother being born. It's just a great education for them, really. They'll never find that in any book. But so then my husband gave me some dinner and I went to bed with my baby. Stayed in bed, should I say? I was already in bed. Yeah, so it was fantastic. Really, really special. Really emotional. If I were to describe his birth in one word, it would be emotional. In such a good way, so many emotions involved in that, like the love and the power and the relief. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope this inspires you to go and birth in your power, because you can do it. The main thing is that nobody disrupts you in doing it. Take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye.